The generous visitors, the morning sky over New York City, changed forever when the massive crystalline ships descended through the clouds like fallen stars. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the laboratory window at the Global Research Institute, watching in awe as 12 identical vessels positioned themselves above major population centers across the globe. Each ship gleamed with an otherworldly beauty, their surfaces shifting between deep purple and silver like living metal. 3 days of tense silence followed the arrival. Military forces worldwide remained on high alert while scientists like Sarah worked frantically to understand what they were dealing with. The ships made no aggressive moves, simply hovering at precisely 10,000 feet above cities from London to Tokyo, from Mumbai to Sao Paulo. On the 4th day, they spoke. The voice came through every communication device on Earth simultaneously, speaking in perfect native languages to each region. The tone was warm, almost parental, carrying an undertone of genuine concern that immediately put listeners at ease. People of Earth, we are the Zephyrian Collective. We have observed your world during its time of great suffering, and we come not as conquerors but as friends who wish to help. Your species faces a pandemic that threatens millions of lives. We have the means to end this suffering. Sarah felt her heart race as she listened to the broadcast from her laboratory. As a xenobiologist, she had spent years theorizing about first contact scenarios, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The aliens weren't demanding resources or territory. They were offering help. Within hours, Ambassador Cathara materialized in the United Nations General Assembly through advanced holographic technology. The being stood nearly 8 feet tall, with elegant reptilian features and scales that shifted color with emotion. Her large amber eyes held an ancient wisdom, and when she spoke, her voice carried the same comforting tone as the initial broadcast. Your pandemic has claimed over 10 million lives, Cathara said, addressing the stunned world leaders. We possess medical technology that can eliminate this virus entirely, along with cancer, genetic disorders, and countless other ailments that plague your species. We ask for nothing in return except the opportunity to help. General David Harrison watched the proceedings from his command center in Colorado Springs, his weathered face creased with suspicion. As head of the Earth Defense Coalition, he had spent decades preparing for potential alien encounters, and every scenario had involved some form of conflict or negotiation. This seemed too good to be true. The Zephyrians demonstrated their technology. Immediately, they transported down medical devices that resembled crystalline lotus flowers, each one capable of completely healing any biological ailment within minutes. The demonstrations were broadcast worldwide as terminally ill patients emerged from the devices completely cured, their bodies restored to perfect health. Professor Miguel Santos observed the celebrations from his office at Oxford University, where he studied economic and social systems. While the world rejoiced, he couldn't shake his unease. In all of human history, no one had ever offered something for nothing, especially not something this valuable. The medical devices spread across the globe with unprecedented speed. Zephyrian ships delivered thousands of units to hospitals, clinics, and emergency centers. Within weeks, humanity's greatest health crises were becoming memories. The pandemic ended virtually overnight. Cancer rates dropped to 0. Even genetic conditions that had plagued families for generations simply vanished. Captain Rebecca Torres, known as Becca to her friends, ran intelligence operations for the Coalition's special forces. While the world celebrated, she maintained surveillance on the alien activities. Her teams reported the same pattern everywhere. The Zephyrians were incredibly generous, but also remarkably interested in human biological data. They're scanning everyone who uses the devices. Becca reported to General Harrison during a classified briefing 6 weeks after first contact. Advanced genetic analysis, neural mapping, physiological baselines. They claim it's for treatment, optimization, but they're building comprehensive profiles of our entire species. Sarah Chen made her own disturbing discovery while analyzing blood samples from recently treated patients. The miraculous healing came with a price that no one had noticed initially. The medical devices didn't just cure diseases, they altered human biology in subtle but significant ways. The treatments are making us dependent. Sarah explained to a secret gathering of concerned scientists and military officials. Our immune systems are being systematically weakened. Natural healing processes are being suppressed. Without regular treatments, patients begin showing signs of rapid deterioration. Dr. Chun's research revealed that humans who had been treated multiple times show decreased muscle mass, reduced bone density, and slower reflexes. Their cognitive abilities remained intact, but their physical capabilities were steadily declining. Most troubling of all, they seemed to lose their natural skepticism and become more trusting of authority figures. The Zephyrians explained these side effects as temporary adjustment periods necessary for the advanced medical technology to work properly. Ambassador Cathara addressed concerns with patient reassurance, promising that the effects would stabilize once humanity fully adapted to their medical systems. General Harrison wasn't buying it. His military training had taught him to look for patterns, and the pattern here was deeply disturbing. An enemy didn't need to conquer a species if they could make that species voluntarily dependent on them. Professor Santos published papers questioning the long-term implications of the Zephyrian aid, but his warnings were largely ignored by a population drunk on the promise of perfect health. World leaders praised the aliens as humanity's saviors, and anyone who questioned their motives was dismissed as paranoid or ungrateful. The secret resistance began forming around Sarah Chen's research. General Harrison provided military expertise and resources while maintaining his public role as a grateful defender of Earth. Professor Santos analyzed the economic implications of complete medical dependence, calculating that humanity was trading its independence for temporary comfort. Captain Torres discovered that the Zephyrians had been observing Earth for far longer than they admitted. Classified satellite data revealed anomalous readings dating back over 50 years, suggesting extensive reconnaissance and preparation. This wasn't a spontaneous rescue mission. It was a carefully planned operation. Commander Vex, the Zephyrian military leader, occasionally appeared alongside Ambassador Cathara during official functions. Unlike the diplomat's warm demeanor, Vex carried himself with the cold efficiency of a professional soldier. Sarah noticed that he paid particular attention to human military installations and defensive capabilities during their tours. The resistance members met in secret, using their official positions to gather intelligence while maintaining public personas of grateful cooperation. They discovered that similar aid missions had been mentioned in intercepted Zephyrian communications, referencing other worlds where they had provided assistance. Sarah's breakthrough came when she managed to analyze the quantum structure of a medical device. The technology was incredibly advanced, but its design revealed its true purpose. The devices weren't just healing humans, they were fundamentally altering human DNA to make the species more docile and physically dependent. They're domesticating us. Sarah reported to the resistance group during a meeting in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath Washington, D.C. just like we domesticated wolves into dogs thousands of years ago, making us weaker, more dependent, easier to control. General Harrison's face hardened as he processed the implications. How long before the effects become permanent? Sarah consulted her research notes. Based on current treatment rates and biological adaptation patterns, I estimate we have maybe 6 months before the changes become irreversible on a species-wide level. The Resistance realized they were facing an extinction event disguised as salvation. The Zephyrians weren't trying to help humanity. They were preparing to harvest it. But with billions of people now dependent on alien medical technology for survival, exposing the truth would cause mass panic and potentially millions of deaths. Professor Santos calculated the logistics of the operation with growing horror. They're not just changing our biology, he reported. They're studying our social structures, our decision-making processes, our response to authority. This is a comprehensive subjugation program. Captain Torres intercepted communications between Zephyrian ships that confirmed their worst fears. The aliens spoke casually about livestock management and breeding optimization. They discussed human emotional responses as if studying laboratory animals, noting which approaches generated the most compliance. The Resistance faced an impossible choice. They could expose the truth and watch billions die as withdrawal from alien medical technology killed those who had become dependent, or they could remain silent and watch humanity slowly transform into a domesticated species. As the 6-month mark approached, Ambassador Kithara announced the next phase of Zephyrian assistance. They would be establishing permanent medical facilities on Earth to ensure continued treatment for the human population. The announcement was met with worldwide celebration, but the Resistance members knew they were witnessing the final stage of humanity's enslavement. Sarah Chen stood in her laboratory one last time, looking out at the Zephyrian ships that had become a permanent fixture in Earth's skies. The crystalline vessels no longer seemed beautiful to her. They looked like the bars of a cage that humanity had willingly entered. The time for observation and analysis was over. If humanity was going to survive as a free species, the Resistance would have to act soon. But how could a small group of humans fight beings who possessed technology centuries beyond their own? The answer would require everything that made humanity unique: creativity, adaptability, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat even when victory seemed impossible. The human response to revelation came during what should have been a routine diplomatic meeting. Ambassador Kithara stood before the United Nations General Assembly, her scales shifting to deeper shades of purple as she prepared to address the gathered world leaders. What she said next would change everything. The time has come for humanity to embrace its new role in the galactic community, Kithara announced, her voice carrying the same warm tone that had initially comforted billions. Your species has proven remarkably adaptable to our medical enhancements. You are now ready to serve the greater good of the Zephyrian collective. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the broadcast from her hidden laboratory, her blood running cold as the alien diplomat continued. Effective immediately, all human governments will be dissolved. Your species will be relocated to designated territories where you can live comfortable lives under our guidance. In return, you will provide labor and biological resources to support our expansion throughout this galaxy. The stunned silence in the assembly hall lasted only moments before chaos erupted. World leaders shouted questions and protests, but their voices carried less conviction than they should have. The medical treatments had been more effective than even Sarah had realized. Many of the officials seemed confused and disoriented. struggling to process why they should object to what the aliens presented as a reasonable arrangement. General Harrison activated emergency protocols from his command center, but the response was sluggish. Military personnel who had received multiple treatments moved slowly, their decision-making processes compromised by months of biological manipulation. Only the handful of soldiers who had avoided the medical devices remained fully capable. Commander Vex materialized alongside Ambassador Cathara, his military bearing now openly displayed. "Resistance is illogical," he declared, scanning the assembly with cold efficiency. "Your species lacks the physical capability to oppose us. Your weapons are primitive. Your bodies have been optimized for compliance and labor. Accept your new role with dignity." But the Zephyrians had made a critical error. In their careful study of human biology and psychology, they had focused on individual responses rather than collective behavior. They understood how to manipulate individual humans, but had missed the deeper aspects of human nature that emerge during existential crises. Professor Miguel Santos felt something awakening in his mind as he listened to the aliens' declaration. The fog that had clouded his thinking for months began to clear, burned away by a surge of pure rage. They had been treating humanity like livestock, and now they expected grateful submission to slaughter. Captain Rebecca Torres activated hidden communication networks that the Resistance had prepared for this moment. Across the globe, the handful of uncompromised humans began implementing plans they had hoped never to use. Military depots that had been secretly maintained without alien knowledge suddenly came online. Hidden weapons caches were distributed. 2 resistance cells worldwide. Sarah Chen's research had revealed the aliens' greatest weakness: their overconfidence. The Zephyrians had assumed that biological manipulation would be sufficient to control humanity. They had not accounted for the peculiar human ability to overcome physical limitations. Through sheer stubborn determination, the first act of resistance came from an unexpected source: Dr. James Murphy, a physician who had administered thousands of alien treatments, suddenly stood up in a hospital in Dublin and began destroying the medical devices with a fire axe. His actions sparked similar responses worldwide, as healthcare workers who had seen the truth began sabotaging the very technology they had once praised. General Harrison coordinated the military response using communication systems the aliens had overlooked. Ham radio operators, satellite phones, and even simple messenger systems began carrying orders to uncompromised units. The Zephyrians had studied human technology but had dismissed older, less efficient systems as irrelevant. The aliens responded. With expected superiority, Zephyrian security forces deployed from their ships, armed with energy weapons and protected by advanced armor. They moved to secure key installations with the casual efficiency of farmers herding cattle. But cattle don't usually shoot back. Sarah Chen had spent months analyzing alien technology, and her research bore fruit in ways the Zephyrians never anticipated. Human creativity had found weaknesses in systems designed by logical, methodical minds. The aliens' energy weapons had predictable power signatures that could be disrupted by modified electronics. Their armor was designed to stop energy weapons, but was vulnerable to kinetic projectiles fired at specific angles. The urban warfare that erupted across Earth's cities showcased humanity's greatest advantage: adaptability, while compromised humans struggled to resist their programming. Unaffected individuals used guerrilla tactics that the aliens found incomprehensible. Why would inferior beings continue fighting when defeat was inevitable? Professor Santos organized resistance networks using social structures the aliens had dismissed as primitive. Religious organizations, community groups, and even criminal networks became conduits for coordinated resistance. The Zephyrians had studied human government and military structures, but had ignored the informal networks that truly connected human society. Captain Torres led special operations that targeted alien communications and supply lines. Her teams discovered that the Zephyrian ships, while technologically advanced, relied on quantum communication networks that could be disrupted by carefully placed electromagnetic pulses. Human ingenuity had found ways to blind and deafen the alien fleet. The turning point came when Sarah Chen made a breakthrough in understanding the medical devices. The same quantum technology that made them so effective could be reversed. Instead of suppressing human biological functions, the devices could be modified to enhance them. Humans who had been weakened by months of treatment could be restored. But the process was dangerous and painful. Underground facilities became human rehabilitation centers where compromised individuals underwent agonizing treatments to restore their natural biology. Many didn't survive the process, but those who did emerged stronger and more determined than ever. The aliens had inadvertently provided humanity with the tools for its own liberation. The war escalated as both sides adapted their strategies. The Zephyrians brought additional ships and weapons, but they struggled to understand human behavior. Their logical approach to warfare was confounded by human creativity and unpredictability. Why would humans sacrifice themselves for others? Why would they continue fighting against impossible odds? Commander Vex found himself facing an enemy unlike any in Zephyrian experience. Human tactics made no sense from a survival perspective, yet they were proving remarkably effective. Humans would pretend to surrender, then detonate hidden explosives. They would sacrifice valuable resources to save single individuals. They cooperated across racial, national, and religious boundaries that should have prevented unity. General Harrison coordinated a global strategy that used humanity's diversity as a weapon. Different cultures approached warfare differently, creating a multi-front conflict that the aliens couldn't predict or counter. Japanese precision combined with Russian endurance, American innovation merged with British persistence, and African adaptability joined with South American creativity. The space battle began when human aerospace engineers, working with salvaged alien technology, launched a desperate assault on the Zephyrian fleet. Converted civilian rockets carried nuclear warheads and experimental weapons into orbit. The aliens' energy shields were designed to stop their own weapons, not primitive human explosives. Sarah Chen led a team that infiltrated the lead Zephyrian ship using captured alien technology. Their mission was to plant a quantum virus in the fleet's communication network, using the aliens' own interconnected systems against them. The irony was perfect. The very technology that made the Zephyrians so efficient would become the vector for their defeat. Asterisk. The virus spread through the alien fleet faster than their security systems could respond. Ships lost coordination, weapon systems malfunctioned, and critical systems began failing. The Zephyrians discovered too late that their advanced technology was vulnerable to the chaotic creativity of human computer programmers. Ambassador Kithara made one final attempt at negotiation, offering to leave Earth in exchange for a cessation of hostilities. But humanity's response was unanimous and uncompromising. Professor Santos delivered the message that would become legendary. You came here offering help, but you brought slavery. You thought our kindness was weakness, but you found our strength. Leave now and never return. The final battle took place simultaneously across multiple fronts. in Earth's cities, in orbital space, and in the quantum networks that connected the alien fleet. Humanity fought with everything they had, using weapons ranging from stone axes to plasma cannons, from prayer circles to satellite networks, from individual heroism to species-wide coordination. When the last Zephyrian ship fled Earth's solar system, humanity stood victorious but forever changed. The medical treatments had left lasting effects on billions of people, but human ingenuity had found ways to turn weakness into strength. Those who had been compromised developed enhanced cooperation skills. Those who had resisted developed improved immune systems. General Harrison stood in the ruins of New York City, watching the sunrise paint the sky in brilliant colors, unmarred by alien ships. The cost had been enormous, but humanity had learned valuable lessons about independence, cooperation, and the price of accepting help without understanding its true cost. Dr. Sarah Chen established new research protocols to prepare for future contact with alien species. Her work would ensure that humanity would never again be caught unprepared, never again mistake genuine aid for disguised conquest. The species that had once been marked for domestication had become something far more dangerous, united, experienced, and determined to protect their freedom. Captain Torres began training the next generation of defenders, passing on hard-won knowledge about asymmetric warfare and alien psychology. Her students would carry forward the lesson that technological superiority means nothing against determined resistance, backed by creative thinking and absolute refusal to surrender. The Zephyrian Collective would long remember their encounter with humanity. They had expected to find another species suitable for domestication, and had instead discovered a race that would rather die fighting than live in comfortable slavery. Other alien civilizations would receive warnings about the small blue planet, whose inhabitants mistook kindness for weakness only once. Humanity had answered with war, and in doing so had declared to the galaxy that they would remain free.